Every Night is Game Night, episode 70, Charterstone Deep Dive. Hey everybody, welcome back to Every Night is Game Night. This is Anthony once again with Jason.
Yo, my people, what's up?
Alright guys, we are back with another deep dive review. This time we're going to be looking at Charterstone, the legacy worker placement game from Stonemaier Games.
All right, so this is a legacy game. So Anthony and I have both played it. Anthony has played the solo for 12 missions, and I have played a bit of solo, but mostly in 3-player. We're gonna do a couple of funky things for this episode. First, like with any legacy episode, we will be sensitive to spoilers. So the very first part of the show, we are going to be spoiler free, and we're going to talk about the first game only. The things you can see, like the watch it played video, or if you wanted to read the book, read the rules on BGG. We're going to give you our impressions of that experience and our general overall kind of after 12 games, non-spoiler opinions of it. We'll put up a pretty clear kind of demarcation, and then we'll get into spoilers. Also, beyond the spoiler wall, we're going to have some guests so that you don't just get Anthony and me giving our thoughts. You have some other people's perspective as well. So the first one will be Martin, who is a Patreon backer of BoardGamersAnonymous.com, which is a sister podcast of this one, Every Night is Game Night. So just to give you a heads up, we do have a Patreon through BoardGamersAnonymous.com. If you back us, you will join our Slack channel, and you will be subject to me calling you and yanking you on the podcast so you can talk about some games. So if that sounds like fun, then I encourage you to go ahead and look at our Patreon and give us a back. The second one is from Matt and Jenn Bartlett. Those are the two folks who I completed the campaign with, and I turned on the phone and, just recorded their thoughts. You're going to want to hear what Jen has to say. It's pretty funny. So, I think that's pretty simple. Right there, bud?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just keep in mind, if you don't want the spoilers, this might be a very short episode. It's not a particularly complex game when you first start. All right, guys. So Charterstone is as you might imagine, a worker placement game in which you are setting out by order of the king to found a new village. So you go out with 5 of your best buds, and the 6 of you are each going to have your own charter, and you are going to be building different things. So you start the game with one of several different personas and starting buildings, and then you basically seed the map with a handful of starting buildings, and these starting buildings are pretty basic. And then you're going to be taking actions to generate victory points. And the vast majority of the actions you take, and again, this is worker placement, so you're placing your 2 workers on either the 5 central action places in the middle of the board, or one of the 6 basics that you started on the board, along with a couple of other optional places you can go. And what you're trying to do in this first game is build new stuff and open crates. And the way crates work is, once you've built a thing, it's a stickered little card, you take the sticker off the card, you place it on the board, and then if that card has a crate in the top right corner, that is now a crate you can open. And there is a sheet of paper that tells you which cards you take out of the index when you open a crate. So you say you open crate number, 27, and you look at the sheet, and it tells you to pull out cards number 30, 46, and then 120 through 133 or something. It'll also tell you who gets those cards, where they go, and if there's new rules that come out with those cards, you apply those to the rule book. You're going to be going through and doing this, and the first game is a lot of this. There's a lot of opening new rules, there's a lot of opening new buildings and crates and stuff that everybody's going to do the same the first game, because it's designed to kind of teach you the things that are part of the game. Other important parts of the game, you have a track that measures your progress. So every time you open a crate or build a building or complete an objective, you are going to move up that track. When it gets to the end, the game will end at the end of that round. Everybody has influence tokens. Those are going to go out in various places. So you have to spend influence tokens to build a building. You also have to spend them to open a crate. You also can place them on a reputation track, which is a victory point majority section up in this corner. Various different actions will let you go up there, but the end of the game, whoever's up there has the most up there is going to get points, and so on and so forth. There's also a little place up on the top left corner of the board where you can turn in various types of resources for potential benefits. The base benefit is just victory points, but if you turn in enough resources, you can also move up the reputation track or get bonus victory points. These are kind of the bulk of the actions you can take in that first game. That first game is really just about getting the game set up and learning the rules and going through the basic beginning pieces of that story.
Yeah, so put your worker down, get a resource, put the worker down over there, turn that resource into another resource, pull the workers back. So like there's also an action where if all your workers are placed, you pull them all back. And also with the workers, you can bump other workers. So like in a lot of these similar games like Lords of Waterdeep, you can't go where a worker is, but in this game you can kind of bump them off, which gives them a benefit. They can place their worker without having to spend that action and pull them back. So you can always do a thing. So that increases the family friendliness of it. You can always kind of do your thing. You're not really competing in that hard way with your opponents. But really you're going to get a thing and you're going to get more things and you're going to use those things to unlock things. It's like change for change for change for change. So that's kind of the essence of the game. So, we wanted to talk about our first game because it's the thing that's in front of you. And I think Anthony and I both agree that this game, like the first game, this is like the dirt simple, worker placement 101 in like a college course. The first game that someone designs, like, please, like demonstrate this to the class and design a worker placement game. They're going to make this. They're going to make the first game of Charterstone. Yeah.
It's funny because like I'm describing this game here and I feel like I'm having trouble describing it because it's too simple, right?
I'm so glad you said that because like the first game we played, the three of us, we had such trouble. Like, what do we do? What do we do? This doesn't make any sense to me. We're watching Rodney's video and it turns out we were so frustrated because it's so simple. We were like, this is all? That's really what we were doing. So like, they tell us, okay, you have to get four coins, and a certain building in order to open the Charterstone. Well, you start with 4 coins. So you can really, open a crate or open a building like right away. And we're looking at the space for like a half hour going, it can't be that simple. We're missing something. We're missing something. And we weren't. It starts way too easy. It starts, the way they put it on the Ludology podcast is like, a game starts too early. Like you can start a game too early. So like if you're doing the same thing over and over again, then it's probably just give that to the players and let them play the real game. So I think this game kind of messes up a little bit by starting that early. I guess playing with like a family, like 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old will be okay. But like for real gamers, it might just really, oh man.
Yeah. It's a funny thing because I feel like if you ask somebody to deconstruct a worker placement game, like take a medium weight euro and deconstruct it with its base components, this is what you end up with at the end of the day. And that's what it is too. Like describing this game to you is you take a worker, you put him down, you get the resource, you do that again, you recall your workers, and then you do it again. Like it's again. Yeah. It's so basic. And you just do that and do that and do that and then spend the resources to get a thing, and which moves the progress token along one, and then you do it and do it and do it. Like it just feels it's on rails, that first game, because there's certain you have to do it, otherwise the game doesn't progress. So
I will say though, like every fiber of my being felt me being pushed on the rails, and I intentionally went against the rails. So like you're supposed to build a couple of buildings, go through that cycle of building a building, opening a crate. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go for some of the other tracks. I'm going to go to complete objectives, and I'm going to go for the reputation tab. I ended up winning, but ended up screwing myself because I ended up that game with no buildings. Oops.
Yep.
So that was our impressions of the first game. And then I guess we'll fast forward to the overall in terms of the non-spoiler review. So you played 12 games with the solo. You overcame that barrier of how simple the first game was. As you were going through, did it kind of open up in terms of mechanism-wise and in terms of the feel of the game?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I was going to put it on a chart, like the first game or two is a 0. It's not like rating 0, just like a weight of 0. It's the tutorial, right? It's when you're playing a video game, this is the tutorial section where they're walking you through and you're just clicking next. Yes, I know how these games work. And And then eventually, like around game 4, the tutorial kind of pulled back. You know, like think of Civilization. Like everything you click on for the first hour of that game, if you've never played it before, is just like text bubbles telling you every possible menu and all the things you can do. And you're like, I get it, okay? And eventually it pulls back, and then maybe every 20 or 30 minutes a text bubble pops up and says, this is a new thing, check this out. And that's kind of how the game unfolded for me. So by the time you get to like game 7, you're just going with it. And then once a game, maybe there's one new thing or two new things that kind of get thrown in there, and you have to kind of work those into your strategy. So like it starts out so unbelievably light that it was boring. By the time you get to the middle of the campaign, it's like a lightweight entry-level game. And then by the end of it, maybe like a mid-weight-ish game. It never really gets complex in any rightful way. Like, and no one ever claims it is. It's not supposed to be a complex game. But that's kind of the curve you're looking at. So if you're thinking about playing this with like a group of heavy gamers, I don't know. I don't know how much they're going to... Like, I'm 3 or 4 games in now with, a group of not super heavy gamers, not necessarily like Euro-centric gamers, but, we play heavier games, and we're all kind of in the same boat of just like, come on, like, let's go, give me something interesting to do. There's not a lot of challenge to it, at least not early on.
So then I guess I'm coming in with the thematic side. So I'm the thematic guy in this podcast for the most part. From a theme perspective, I thought the game was charming. Like I was happy to play. Like it made me happy to play. Like we haven't talked a little bit about the art style. The art style is very cute. Think of like the cartoony people on the Imperial Settlers cover. Like a Takanoko type thing. There's no pandas in this game, but there are like other kind of similar things going on in terms of like, fantastical, but in a cartoony, soft palette way type deal. There is a story. The story is, okay.
We'll get to it. Yeah.
yeah. We will get to it. There is a story. It felt good to play. I am happy I played with 3 players. I think Anthony's experience was as a solo, and that was a little bit of a rougher experience. We can't get into too much detail. There is an automa designed by the Automa Factory guys, Morton and David, our friends, who are going to appear on the show at some future date. As a multiplayer, we did play with the automa and multiplayer. I played, different styles of it. The automa definitely pushed you. Like, in a game like this, and I think this is where I kind of land. In a game like this, I almost don't want to play it for points. I want to play it to explore stuff, and I want to play it to build. Maybe win, but more to like kind of explore the game, like a Sims. Like the Sims, the people who designed Sims intentionally made that game for people who don't want to feel that pressure to win. So like, you want to build buildings, you want to see what's in there, you want to take the suboptimal path that you open up the maximum amount of stuff. As a matter of fact, it says right on the front of the box, a village building legacy game. Nowhere in there is there a point salad game or worker placement game or whatever it is. The draw is the village building, so that's what I wanted to do. But the multiplayer game, and especially the automa, really push you to do the points thing as opposed to the cool thing. It definitely sets up that dichotomy of like, okay, you could do the cool thing right now. You have all these buildings, but you have to like take a bunch of turns in order to open up these buildings. And by then the other player has kind of done something where kind of forces play, and the automa really does that. So I was kind of torn both from a feel perspective as well on the game. I'm glad I played it. I'm glad we got through the 12 games. I don't know that I would go back. And I think that there's, if I'm going to play a game like this, I'm probably going to turn towards a Takanoko. It's one of my favorites. Pursuit of Happiness is another one of my favorites. Also worker placement and, doing stuff to get stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So like, I at the end of the day, a little bit of a mixed review, but I am glad I played it. 12 games. I mean, the fact that we got through all 12 games, both of us got through all 12 games, not just because, we got review copies and everything, but we did, have enough fun with it to get through the 12 games. There are some definitely mixed stuff, and Anthony kind of articulated the mechanical stuff, and I'm kind of talking about the feeling of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad we both played it different ways too, because like I wasn't comfortable reviewing this game having only played the solo, because wasn't the best experience in the world. And like you said, the Automa has issues, but I don't necessarily want to go through and play another 12 games of it. Not that it's not enjoyable, just, you ran through 12 games in 2 weeks. You don't want to do that again in the next 2 weeks. So it's good to have those two perspectives, because I think it is very, very different. And I think solo gamers out there, especially, who are looking at the box and it says 1 to 6, they're like, oh, maybe it's, pay attention.
Yeah. So those are our non-spoiler specific reviews. Again, we both give the game a recommendation at the end of the day. Go ahead and check it out. I admire the, I guess, cojones of the design, like a legacy Euro game. It is doing some interesting stuff. I think that it's a good first crack at it. I'd like to see what future games kind of learn from this experiment. So that's the non-spoiler stuff. So we are going to wall this off and get into the 12 games, details, spoilers, beware. Okay, we are back. It's Beyond the Spoiler Wall. Anthony, check this out. Look at where we are. We are in the Spoilerville.
In Spoiler Land. Nice.
Spoiler. Look, everything is spoiled. Look at, smells in here.
Yeah, I know. Ugh.
What are we doing here? This is disgusting. Have you figured it out yet, guys? We're in the Spoilerville. If you're in this far into the show, just turn this off if you're not interested in the spoilers for Charterstone. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the aspects of Charterstone that it comes to spoilers. So the story. So you got the story of the Forever King. And the Forever King is ordering... it's in a central city, and he's ordered, a bunch of people out to settle a new city. So go settle a new city. And the way the story plays out over 12 turns is that after every game, so the story doesn't matter in the middle of the game. Like you get these guidepost things where it's like, okay, do this and you'll please the king. Do that or you'll please the king. Get the most reputation, build the most buildings or whatever it is. So I guess you're interacting with the story that way, but it's just like a goal. It's not like an actual, theme immersion. Then at the end of the story, you're going to get different chapters in the game, so that it'll happen where it's like, okay, the king is coming, prepare this way. The king is coming, prepare that way, and eventually the king actually comes. And at the end of the game, depending on how you did, of course, it's a legacy game, you got to open up both packets to see whether you got the good ending or the bad ending. The king either, I think, like, takes over your soul or does whatever, like it's actually kind of a big trap. to get everybody in one place and build up the city so that he can suck everybody's souls, or you actually figure him out and defeat the Forever King and all that kind of stuff, and you live free forever and ever. So did you notice the story at all?
What story? Yeah, man, it was tough. Like, I don't think I was paying any attention to it at all until maybe game 7 or 8. Whenever they give you the companion card, and you had to choose whether or not to be cool with them spying on you or not, like, that was like, oh, this is, and then you like put it in your box and it'll come back later. It was just kind of this random mechanic they threw in there, and then it does come back later, and it matters. It like impacts kind of what your final ending ends up being. So I think that was when I started paying attention, like, oh, some of these things matter. But before that, I was like, oh, the king says that this week we have to share, we can't use each other's buildings, whatever, I don't care. Or whatever it was, like silly stuff like that. Just, they were really just ways to tweak the rules from game to game, like excuses, more than actual story beats.
Yeah, I actually felt a little bit bad because I heard Jamie was on Board Game Design Lab with my good friend Gabe. I've been on his podcast before, and he's like, "Yeah, I really enjoyed writing the fiction of it, and I got this idea to write a story that like unites all 12 games, and I had a lot of fun, kind of writing all the little things." And I guess you could tell that it was written way after the basic design of the game had been set. Is about as far as I'll go with that. It was charming. Yeah. It added to the atmosphere. I don't know that it was essential to the my experience of the game. Yeah, I think it comes back to that same idea. Like, whenever you say the word legacy, you expect a certain thing to happen. And this game does those things. It does all the things that you think of when you think legacy, but it's not a story-driven game. It's a Euro. So at the end of the day, it's the mechanics. So every time
the story interacts with the game. It's to change the mechanics. It's not to actually change the flow or your experience in the story.
I'll definitely get to the legacy because I'll save that for last, like whether legacy was like effective or useful or anything like that in this game. But I did want to go through some of the things that you actually get. So there were the unlocks. So the unlocks kind of come in for me in 3 categories. There was the buildings. Sure. Obviously, the board kind of keeps pace, and so you get all these buildings, and the buildings are just kind of like these more ways to kind of exchange stuff for stuff. So you can exchange one of your influence tokens for 2 things. The Automa can open up buildings, and then you get the inactive charters; they open up buildings. I mean, did you feel like that was effective and exciting to kind of to get you through gameplay? Did you really feel like you were building a city?
For like 2/3 of the game, like at a certain point, it just became. Like buildings would come out and you're like, it's not great, but it's worth 20 points. So I guess I'll build it. You don't really want to cover up the stuff you have because like this stuff's fine. Like eventually everything's covered and you have all your sky islands out and you're just like, all right, well it's worth, 17 more points than this building. So I guess I'll do it. Even though you're using that 3-point building repeatedly.
Right.
So it's, I didn't love that. You made like end game scoring decisions. Also the fact that it's a campaign and legacy thing, you don't know what the end game scoring is going to look like. You don't know how high those scores are going to be. Like, does 20 points make a big difference? I have no idea.
I know 20 is better than 3. So.
Yeah, like it's more. I guess more is good. But what's the end score going to be? Like 150 or 900? I don't know.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't love that.
I had the same thing where like I had. So this goes into my kind of negative with the building. And so I had a little engine going, right? So I was the yellow player and I had the wheat and I turned the wheat into reputation. I was like the reputation maven. I was always just like putting the ships out, getting 10 points or whatever it is. And it was, whatever. I guess that's the negative of the game. You can get into the same strat over and over and over again, but we'll get to that. For me, in terms of the building though, like when I looked through after the game was over, I found out that there was a higher point building and it was a more effective version of the building that I was spamming, my little 3-point building, but I never built it because it never came out. Either it never came out or, it was floating there in the market for one game and I didn't get a chance to get it because I was working on something else. Again, a game forces you to make a choice between doing the cool thing and building and racing to score points. That is at the end of the day, that's kind of what broke things for me to take this down from like a really good game to a pretty good game is I didn't want to have to make that choice. I didn't want to have to, sacrifice the point scoring for the coolness. Like I totally would have I probably should have just looking back at it, what's the point? Like, why am I so obsessed about winning? But I'm in the moment, I'm like, I have to win.
Yeah. I know it's a funny thing too, because the game very clearly shows you with what you get points for, like winning doesn't matter. Like you get whatever it is, the 6 to 8 points for winning a game, but you get 1 to 3 points for losing the game. So there's like a 4 to 5 point differential there. It's not huge. And if you can do something cool with that or upgrade your buildings, probably offsets.
Yeah. So I got caught in that. I didn't like that tension. I didn't like the fact, and this will go into some of the other things, there was different unlocks that you had. You had minions, so you get extra workers, and the minions all did something, and you could borrow other people's minions, so you can unlock an inanimate charter. I had the chefs, so you can get the golems, you get the robots. I liked having my little menagerie of workers. I think I had I kind of prided myself on having all 6. Just because.
Yeah, the minions were awesome. They were when I first unlocked them, I was like, this seems too powerful. The robot in particular, because you when you place them, you get a card. Yeah. And then if someone goes there, you get another card. I'm like, getting cards is not easy. So this seems overpowered, but they all seem a little overpowered. So I guess it's fine, right?
Yeah, I had the one that got the influence token back that eventually didn't matter as much. Compared to just getting 1 VP every time you place a stupid cat.
Yeah. That was great when I unlocked it. It was game 4 or something. I was like, ooh, 3 points. And then by game 10, I'm like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah. And eventually, so in the first 6 games, our experience was you worked on your part of the board. So the minions are really powerful because they can only go on your part of the board. And then, going out to the other spaces became more important in the back half of the game. So the minions became way less powerful. So I think that balanced out. I think that was pretty effective. And they were really cool too. I think the minions are probably my favorite unlock. There was the unlocks were like a lot of cards, the guests, what else did you get?
The assistants were first, right, and then friends and guests. And I will say I liked one of them. One of them was fine, and one of them was pointless. So. Yeah.
I think I just think they were hit and miss. I think I didn't like that some of them. I think the one version depended on like I think this was the friends, where if you go to the black charter, a victory point thing in the black charter, you get an extra victory point. And some, like in the black charter was an inactive charter, and there was no victory point buildings there. It's like, why is that friend there? Why is she taking up space when I want my grain building to come out? So it seems so random, and I just felt like it added bloat to what is already kind of a bloaty deck, and it got in the way of the really, really best part of the game, which was the buildings. So I actually thought it was, as opposed to being like a blah thing, it was like an active negative for me. It was just too much.
Yeah, I don't feel like it was negative. I like the assistants early because they're in the deck early, and then and they give you nice little bonuses and things you can do, and it's fun to name the guys when you get them.
We had some classics.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Like I forgot for a little while. The first time playing it by myself. Now playing with other people, I'm like, we got to name them all. The friends, though, I never took one the entire campaign. They were never worth it, and they all have that same silly victory point thing. I'm sure there's some combo someone's put together where it makes sense to have them, but
the combo has to result from an RNG pop of the deck. Someone has to decide to build it, or the automa has to decide to build it. Yeah.
It's not worth it. The guests, though, I like the guests, because once you finally... And this is the thing that annoyed me a little bit, because you had certain mechanics in the game that you could see from game one, like income, but then income didn't actually become part of the game until like game 6 or 7, because you didn't have buildings with income on them, and you didn't have the guests, which are income target or income triggered, until you get that far into the game. And then once I got them, I'm like, I'm going to get the guests every time, because these are super powerful. If you get them early, you get that income 3 times.
Right.
But which just made it even sillier, because then those are taking up space alongside the friends, which like they're not even close to the same value. So yeah, you do get that bloat.
And then the last thing that in terms of the unlocks that I could think of are the peril tokens.
This was a weirdly abstract thing. Like at first I was
really
like, peril tokens. Okay, these each represent a different bad thing happening in the town. Makes sense. When you get them, they're good. That doesn't make sense. Like I don't.
Right.
Like, I guess the idea is that you're getting rid of the bad thing, so you get a bonus for that.
Yeah, like if you went to a space and you just got the peril token, like representing you getting the peril token, then you dealt with the peril. It's perilous. You didn't get to activate the space, but you get to go to the thing, activate the space, and get the peril token. It's like, oh, okay, this is just another goodie. It's not supposed to be a goodie.
Yeah, I didn't make it like, and in the solo game in particular, they were extremely powerful because you get those buildings that you can transfer these things into points.
Oh yeah.
And so I had 3 or 4 of those out there. So every game I'm just like peril, cash in. And then you go up and you trade them in on the track and get the 3 points plus the additional reputation for it, because you have like 8 of them in front of you at a certain point, because they're on every space of the map. It felt strange. I don't know. I don't really know. And there was only like, there was just the one goalpost that had something to do with peril, right? It was like
your favorite goalpost. Oh, baby.
Yeah.
We are talking about the candle. So the way that, so if you unlocked, I think it was game 7 or 8 or something like that. I forget which one. Might have been 8, where you unlock the tux box and you get a candle and you have to, keep it, you light it. It's like a physical candle. Like it says, put this on a flame retardant surface and light it. And if somebody puts it out, then it leaves it vague as opposed to what would happen. So of course I played with a guy who's like, I don't care about this. And if you went on one of the brown tokens, the dark brown power tokens, it just like the flame just went out. Like I think it's called like fuel recovery. I forget what the peril token is.
I think it was
called.
fuel. Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. So if you went on there and, you know, it would put it out, and he goes on there like the first turn. It's like, dude, what are you doing? And it's like, I can score points at this building. I don't care about this candle. I guess it was supposed to be meant to be a thematic thing, and I guess that would be it's a cool prop for families. I was disappointed. I gotta admit it. I was disappointed that he just went there and squashed the candle. The game's effort to kind of like liven things up.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking with that, because like at first I was like, oh, this is a cool idea, I guess, but it's the only thing like that in the entire game. It just feels random. Yeah. Like if each of these goalposts had somehow integrated some unique, weird, offbeat thing, and weren't just like, who has the most reputation? That's it. Not who put the candle out. Like, it's very different ends of the spectrum for me. Like, it's super mechanical, weird candle thing. Right. And I'm not going to knock it at all, because I think it's clever and creative, and I've not seen anybody else do anything like this in a game. But for me personally, I thought it was kind of silly, and I also just put it out. So, like,
did you even light in the first place?
No, I just went to one of the places with the fuel tokens. So I was like,
it's like,
there's no point in now, like with my group, I'll probably light it unless they all equally think it's silly, and then maybe we will not bother. I don't know, but
yeah, okay. So, yeah, so like that's a kind of our exploration of the mechanism. It just kind of goes. You play this. I definitely felt like I was doing the same thing for the first 6 games. Like I was kind of playing my reputation game and doing pretty good. And then it made that turn with a victory point, with a parallel to victory point token building came out. And that's all I did after that. So like, okay, we gotta race to these parallel tokens. If you put a piece that was not on a parallel token, you lost. That's how it felt. And it felt, in both ways, I felt kind of railroaded. Once the parallel tokens were gone, then I was kind of open to do other stuff. It just, that little thing just felt really, really powerful. And this is a 3-player game. So like, it's not like, you were playing solo where you can kind of cherry pick stuff. Like we were just racing each other to get these tokens.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, I feel like not a lot, but several pieces of this game feel like they would be best with 6. And I don't know what I feel about that. And the game is obviously designed for 6 players. It has 6 charters and all these mechanics. There's 6 of them. But at the same time, how often are you going to be able to get a group of 6 together to play 12 games in a Euro campaign? Like 3 or 4 people is probably what you're going to have. And so that's why a game like Pandemic Legacy is perfect, because it's 4 players. I don't know, man. Like for me as a Euro player in general, like what I would do every game is look at the board, see if anything had changed, just kind of figure out what engine I wanted to run for that game, and then just do that for 45 minutes. And then sometimes I beat the Automa, most of the time, sometimes I wouldn't beat the Automa. And if I beat them a couple times, they'd get powerful, because every time you beat them, they score more points per action in future games. And then the next time I'd lose. And it didn't matter in the end, because I had gotten very, very strong scores throughout, regardless, because the Automa forces you to push for those points.
Right.
So it was almost like a Euro in which I need to solve the puzzle of this, but you do it in the first turn.
Yeah, okay.
Which
I definitely get that.
Which I almost wish I had had the opportunity to play it with more casual gamers and just be like, let's explore and unlock stuff. It might have been more fun for me than just the, putting in the Euro hat and just being like, solve it, because it was solvable every time. There's not much randomness there.
Yeah, to me, like, especially when we broke out the Automa with the 3 players, like the Automa kicked our butts. Like they were just, because we were really in the mindset of like, okay, let's open stuff. And we played with the Automa again in games 3 and 4. So I think that's probably what happened actually, or part of what happened in our games, where like we played, we were unlocking stuff, and then we just like, I threw in the Automas because I wanted to do it for the review, and they just brutalized us, and we're like, okay, we have to race. And then we got into the mindset of we're not going to unlock as much stuff, and we're not going to explore as much of the index card boxes as we possibly could. And I guess I regret that choice a little bit. I don't know, like it. So let's talk about legacy. That'll be the last thing. So that's the legacy thing, right? To unlock the boxes, to sticker the board and get the best layout of it and everything. So how did you feel the actual legacy worked?
I don't know. It was interesting because, I feel like in a lot of legacy games, how you perform in the game impacts the way the game board progresses and the way the game progresses. And obviously there aren't a lot of games to compare against, mostly just Davio games. But in this case, it's not necessarily how you perform, although that does impact in the long term a little bit, based on like the goalposts and some of the other stuff. But mostly it's what you do during the game, which will impact future games, like building stuff or unlocking crates. And that's really the majority of it is right. You either put a new building down or you unlock new rules and mechanisms by opening crates. So there's 2 actions you can take that add things to the game. And that was more or less the extent of the legacy thing. So it kind of chained together a little bit. There was no huge surprises. There was no like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. There was no, Pandemic Legacy Season 1 moment where you're like, oh my God,
oh no. You're not going to spoil that.
No, not going to spoil it, but if you played it, you know what I'm talking about. It's just more stuff. So none of the buildings surprised me at any point. Once you got past the minions and that's the thing too, once you unlocked the 1 minion, you knew that there were more because you had to open that box. You could see the other 5 kinds in there. So you're just like, okay, well, I don't know what these do yet because I haven't gotten the cards out yet, but I know they're going to be similar to this. So, all right, like there was no like hugely surprising, massively cool thing that changed the game. And there's a few things that tried to do that, like you had the candle thing, which was kind of clever, but didn't quite work. And some of the story elements where you think, oh, we did good. And they're like, nope, that was the wrong choice. Crud. That was all interesting, but I don't know. I didn't get the same feeling I did from like a game like Pandemic Legacy.
Yeah, I guess this was my own expectation. I expected this to be more like a sim where the joy of that game is to be able to have agency in how your charter is constructed. But I definitely felt constrained by the RNG of how things came out. And I get why, like, you wanted to gamify that process. Like, you wanted to, get that out of the deck and earn it and get your resources. Cause so like, you can't just like build a building for no reason. You have to like actually have the resources on hand. But the buildings that I wanted and the way the combos that I was setting up and the game that whatever combo I had and I was like cool with, I wanted to kind of either keep that going or replace it with a better thing. I didn't want to just replace it with a thing that scored more points that didn't combo with anything that I had, which is what my options were most of the time. So I wish that they had pressed that Sims button a little bit harder. And maybe that's not the only way to build a city, but that's the only way I know to like grow a city, or like the Civ type model, which I think is basically a Civ, a sim. If you take out like the combat and the exploration stuff, like the actual building of it replicates a sim. They didn't hit that button hard enough for me. And if you're not going to hit that button hard enough, then I think the legacy kind of missed the mark a little bit for me. I don't know. I have to kind of check that with how other people exploit. I can only speak for myself in that respect.
Yeah, it's a funny game because I feel like there was a lot of things here. I was like, that's very clever. That's very clever. This is all very, like, as you're playing, you're like, I can't even fathom constructing this, like wrapping your brain around it. The size of that index, there's like 400 cards in there, and all of them are related to other cards and chain off of each other and impact the rules. And the game still has to work depending on which rules cards you get out and when you get them out.
Right.
Very, very, very impressive design feat. It's just a matter in the end of like, did I enjoy it? At every point, and that's tough because there were some points where it just kind of dragged a little bit, or the legacy pieces were not as exciting as I wanted them to be. But in the end, I think we said this before the spoiler wall. It's still worth checking out because it's a great accomplishment, and it's probably the first non-Davio legacy game that's worth checking out. So that's a thing by itself. Right. But it's different. It's definitely in a class of its own.
Okay, so basically we're next on the game. Check it out. It might be for you. We had some issues with it, which we articulated throughout the podcast. So we have 2 guests that are coming up who are on the polar opposite ends of the spectrum. One really liked it. One, well, I'm going to let you listen for yourselves. Hey, everybody. This is Jason here, and I'm here with Martin Perrine. Say hi, Martin.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, so Martin is actually a Patreon backer who is hanging out with us on the Slack channel. So I figured it would be cool. A little perk of donating to the Board Gamers Anonymous Patreon is that we're going to pull from you and we're going to yank you out of your game night and have you come on the episode, which is exactly where I found Martin. So Martin just finished up a campaign of Charterstone 2-player, I believe, right?
That is correct.
Who'd you play with?
I played with my wife.
Okay. Is she a gamer?
She is. We have about 250 board games in our collection. She's my favorite gaming buddy.
That's good for both of y'all. Okay, so just very quickly, this is spoiler filled, by the way, so it's gonna be past the spoiler wall. So go ahead and give me your general impressions of your experience.
Yeah, no, we enjoyed it. It was our first trip into to a legacy game. We chose it because it was Jamie Stegmaier, and he does no wrong by us. So we figured we'd give it a shot. And overall, it was a good, solid worker placement game. The story was decent. I feel the game mechanics were stronger than the story, which works for both of us since we're not very. We much rather just sit and play the game, and the story's kind of the added perk.
Right. Okay, so you felt like it was a pretty strong worker placement game. How did the legacy part work out for you?
It was okay. There was a few twists and turns that were like, oh, that's interesting. But I guess the biggest disappointment was during one part of the campaign, you have to do your point average, and we were below average, so a bunch of bad stuff happened, and it turned out to be my wife's fault. So she was not happy with that turn of getting blamed for it and turning into a ghost and having no body.
Way to hang her out to dry. Did you use the Automas to fill it out?
We did not. We played just the two of us. We didn't do any of that. We don't typically like the robot third player, so we figure if it's good enough, it can stand on its own with the two of us.
And you felt like it did that?
Yeah, for the most part. Putting the stickers was kind of random, but it at least filled up the board, which was good enough for us to give us some more interaction.
Okay, so we get
cool. The first two rounds were slow, or two games,
but then it picked up after that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. So you gave us your biggest disappointment. What was your biggest, I guess, one thing that really kind of popped for you and made you happy?
Yeah, we can talk about spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. I guess the really cool thing was the campaign game where there was a candle, where you open the tuck box and you get out the candle and you actually burn a candle, and you have to play the game as fast as you can before the candle burns out. And we thought that was just really unique and interesting and clever for a game to actually work that in to the story and the theme. And that was one of the things that we were just like, that's really cool.
It's interesting because you guys say you were mostly mechanics people. I found that the people who were theme people liked the candle, and the mechanics people were like, whatever it is, let me grab that black cube and just put out the candle. So you guys actually embraced it, and like you took it as a mechanical challenge to play the game faster.
Yeah, we took it like, okay, well, you're adding an actual timer and there's fire involved. That's awesome. Let's burn this down.
Well, thank you very much, Martin, for contributing your thoughts. We appreciate it, and we'll see you around on Slack.
All right, sounds great. Thanks so much.
Hey, this is Jason, and I'm here with my friends Jen and Matt. You've heard them on the pod before at PAX Unplugged. We just finished a 3-player game of Charterstone, and I would like to know what they thought. So, Matt, we're going to go first. Overall opinions.
It's fine. I was expecting more, actually, especially once you get into a groove of something, you can keep doing that and doing that over and over again and just keep flying ahead with the points. And as far as the story goes, that was a little lackluster for me as well.
Okay.
I agree. The story, to me, a legacy game, the shining aspect should be the story, right? This cohesive story that you're excited about playing. I didn't care about the king. I didn't care that he stole our souls and sucked them up. Didn't care. It was lame. And as I said, it's a village building game, and the building aspect after a while wasn't exciting. It wasn't encouraged. It says 1 to 6 players. I would either do it 1 with 5 automas or 6 players every single time, because there was so much that we missed in terms of the buildings and the other personas.
So I guess if you can give me actually, before we get to that, give me one thing that you loved and one thing that you found was not so lovable.
I actually like the sky tiles for buildings you've built that were useless. Instead of, just spending resources and time building over that building, you just had a sky tile, boom, went right on top of it. And if you found later that it comboed with something else, with the building underneath comboed with something else that was nice, you could just go back to that building again. One thing that was...
I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
The candle.
Oh, the candle was useless. It was like, okay, when the candle goes out, the game ends. Or, if somebody does this, they can blow the candle out. And it was almost immediate that I could be like, I could get some severe points if I just blow that candle out. And there was no consequence for blowing the candle out.
I love that we didn't pay for it.
Oh!
Bang! My husband's dying over here. Sorry, Jamie Stegmaier.
Thank you, Jamie, for the review copy.
Sorry, we really love Scythe.
There you go. We love Scythe. We love viticulture.
Sorry, Matt. Matt's not on the viticulture train either. But he does the same thing in viticulture as he does here, where he found with Winter Visitors, you could keep playing Winter Visitors over and over and over again and never fill a single order and win. So I feel like there's a common thread going on here where you can pound the same thing. Sorry, you're an awesome guy. You're really super cool with your fans. Please don't hate me forever. XOXO.
For the record, how'd you feel about the candle?
I don't know. I thought it was going to be more like it's burning your village down something, or the forest is on fire. Would have been a little more thematic.
All right, so reviews from Jen and Matt. We did not expect Jen to bring the thunder. We asked her, what's the score? 7. And we didn't expect that to be a 7. But anyway.
I always bring the thunder, Jason.
Oh, and there you go. That's it. That is our episode for Charterstone Deep Dive. Anthony, take us home.
All right, guys. So if that is interesting to you, if you want to hear more about games like Charterstone and our deep dives, or just our weekly reviews or our conversations or our interviews and all the cool stuff we do, check us out on everynightisgamenight.com or on Twitter at ENGN_podcast. You can also catch us on Facebook in the Solo Board Gaming group or in the Board Gamers Anonymous page. We're all over the place. Stop in, say hi, leave your comments, questions, suggestions, whatever it is you want to talk about. We'll make sure to get back to you right away, because this is where we get all our episode ideas. Until next time, though, that's going to be everything. So go ahead and grab a solo game off the shelf, and let's make every night game night.
Later, everybody.